can start us off here, Mockmaster. We're talking
Yeah,
trades.
talking trades. Trade number one, Lions Panthers. Simple swap of guys on expiring contracts. Panthers lost Dobbins, who's a free agent this year. Lions lost Brown, who's a free agent this year. So just swapping, adding positions of need, depth. Not exciting. What's more exciting is trade number two. I'm going to talk through
So,
that one.
so trade number two. I think the Jets have been looking. I feel like they already had a good receiving group. I know that they had London. They drafted A.D. Mitchell last year, and they had Lockett, but Lockett's a free agent now. Um, Let me know if you think I'm missing one of their guys, but I'm pretty sure that was the trio. And
McMillan.
yeah, and they also have McMillan. But adding Cooper Cup, he does come on a very large salary, which we've seen in real life, basically caused his cut. Um, Certainly worth something here, though, as kind of your classic Madden overrated veteran on the back end of his career. Um, as far as what the Bengals are getting back, other than freeing up that cap space, Newsome, I think, is like a solid young number two corner with upside, but he is on an expiring fifth-year deal, so there was a bit of a cap offset there. Um, so I thought this was fairly fair. I kind of like it a little for the Jets, just in the sense that I do think these veteran guys like Cup are worth something for, especially for a team trying to, take the next step. But I thought that one made a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes sense for them too with May. Give a young quarterback as many weapons as possible.
Yeah, and I,
Um,
I know I think they want to potentially, try to get him in that like all pro race as early as possible, right, to maximize his
yep.
potential. So, okay, with number three, we had the Bengals sending another high priced guy, Ramsey on the tag, to the Giants for
Yeah,
total pick
I
59.
I loved this for the Giants. Again, yeah, for the Bengals, it makes sense. You get rid of the cap. He's what 30, almost 31. Not that that's a super old guy, but at the same time, 31 usually tends to be where corners start to drop a little bit. Um, for the Giants, obviously, they made the playoffs for the first time last year, won a game. They needed cornerback help, and were able to get it in spades with Ramsey at a fairly low cost, I thought, of a late second in Tolbert. So, uh, and then obviously Giants extending Ramsey right after that. Um, so they've got him now for 3 years,
Yeah, I
and
can't
and
tell if
makes a ton of sense for the Giants.
I can't tell if Ramsey is overrated or is he still a dog in real life. Like I know he's solid in real life, but is he still like that? I mean, Madden thinks he's basically the best corner in the game.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say he's like the best corner, but he's definitely still really good. I my fear with corners is they can tend to hit a wall pretty quick. So like you're banking on him staying good for at least 2 years with a boost in the third year or something like that. Like if
Yeah, well,
if if he falls off, but
maybe he
for the
doesn't pay
Giants it
off
makes
in
sense.
spades down the stretch, but for the short-term return, you got a, basically a top five corner for the upcoming season,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and you've got Stroud on a rookie deal. Like capitalize on it before you have to pay Stroud.
Yep.
Um, makes a ton of sense.
This next one is the Chiefs moving on from Cade Mays and Colton McKivitz. I think McKivitz is a starter in real life. I'm not sure about Mays, but this is essentially the Chiefs trying to open up some roster room to. They have a lot of picks, they have a lot of money, so they need to sign some new guys, and I think they're just kind of opening up space, moving these guys for the Bengals. You get some cheap starter slash depth types on the O line, and all you got to do is give up a 2027 fourth. So I thought it was maybe a little unnecessary, but pretty whatever.
Yep.
I think we can keep going. Number five,
Lions.
I thought this one was a little interesting. Let's hear your thoughts on this one. Lane Johnson.
It, for the Lions, it makes sense. Like you've got some older expiring guys. They've been working on trades for some of those kind of guys. It makes sense to ship them off. I don't know. I don't understand the ACFL's obsession with like 27 things being returned for one guy, which
Yeah,
like three-fourths, a seventh. Green, who's been bad, but now actually was just traded um, as well. Did he go to Philly? I think, which would make sense. I mean, that would be a good upside. if they can fix him, like it is what it
That's
is.
real life. He got traded
But
to Philly.
Philly, yeah, yeah, I think he got traded yesterday to Philly.
And I think Lane is expiring. He's a guy good enough that you'd certainly feel good about tagging him if it came down to that. I'm not sure he would love
Yeah,
that, and this is assuming he's playing in beyond this year. But yeah, maybe about three more components than necessary in this one. It could have been Donna and one pick, but um, I'm surprised. That's the move I'm always expecting, like Steele to make, is go get a really old offensive lineman. So
yeah.
uh, nice to see someone else getting in that market with the Titans making one of their first big splashes. Trade
Uh,
number 6, we got the
th-
Texans sending Baker. He had 2 years left on his deal. Originally, that was when they acquired Baker, it was like a cap dump, like negative asset at the time, if I remember. And
yeah,
now,
Panthers dumped him to go up and get Bryce Young.
as
Like it was a negative. That was the condition for them coming up, is that the Texans would take on Mayfield's contract.
yep, it was a huge amount of picks, McCaffrey, and then Mayfield was seen as like a negative that helped balance it, if I remember. But um, obviously, it's blossomed into a positive for them as they cash in a couple years later with a mid-second this year, a future second, a future third, and a boostable Anthony Richardson that I did the math on it. I think I came up with like he can get up to like 81, 82, possibly 83. It was someone in the low 80s. So potentially a top 15 type of quarterback in the ACFL if he can live up to the rating. And he's young enough that in theory he develops as the season goes on. So
Yeah, I I don't get this one for Atlanta as much. I think this is the one that maybe was the most confusing to me, only because I feel like the pick return in and of itself was pretty hefty for Mayfield. And then to add on a guy that is basically the same overall as Mayfield with a boost. Like I get it, like Richardson hasn't been good in real life, but
and he hasn't been great
with
in the
the
sim
boost, he's
either.
at least usable. So I don't know. I get it. I get why they did it. You're banking on Baker being continually good year over year, but this is the one that I think confused me a little bit among all of the trades in terms of like it just felt like a lot for Baker.
Well, I think it's
But
certainly
that's just
valuing
me.
Baker as a franchise QB. I think that part's clear. Um, there was I know that there was a Baker Mayfield sweepstakes, so getting this type of pick collection I don't think was ever a question. But yeah, it did seem like the Texans wanted to move on. They started really hot last year and then faded, and obviously they're looking to do things a little differently this offseason. But I mean, I love this for them. I think Richardson on that rookie contract, you know you can boost him this year. You know you can do the same thing next year. Probably don't pick up that 5th year, but you got him for at least 2 years, and then if he becomes anything in real life, that's all your upside. He's not. They're not going to start putting him down at a 60 overall or anything like that, where you literally can't boost him, especially if he's not
Yeah,
really playing. So I did like that. I mean, but I do think this ultimately comes down to like how high are you on Baker? Do you think last year was, the beginning of a trend to his, ascendance to the top 10? Um, or maybe you already think he's kind of there. I think he performed like that last year, but he is significantly more expensive in terms of cap than Richardson, and they're both 2-year deals. So if you look at the ACFL market, you've got Purdy, Tua, and Love all getting top of the market deals in the last calendar year, and Baker would kind of fit in there with those types of names as a guy that could be a very difficult extension down the line is basically what I'm getting at. And
yeah.
this, so
70. He's due 70 the next 2 years. Although a lot of that is non-guaranteed.
and he's
Well,
also
I
had
guess that's not even true in 2026 because most of it's in a roster bonus.
Yeah, I mean the
But
Baker contract is absolutely an asset. There's no doubt about that. But I think the next contract on him, that's where things could get shaky if if you have to make a huge commitment and the
Yep.
wheels fall off, that could get rough. He could maybe, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, okay. Speaking of the wheels falling off on a quarterback trade, yeah. So we got Seattle. I'm sending away Russell Wilson, my second round pick, 39, a sixth for basically take this contract. But I'm getting Travis Jones. He's on an expiring deal, and a fourth. So I get some minor assets, and I'm giving up that big pick, 39. Russ was on effectively a 2-year, $90 million deal that can become a 1-year, $70 million out. Or if he retires after this year, it could technically be a 1-year, $45 million out for New England. So kind of Brock Osweilery. They had the cap
Yeah, I
space.
mean,
They had the need.
I I like it for you. You've got. I know you're obviously having to pay more to get rid of Wilson, but you've had an obscene amount of picks for like 4 years straight. You still have 11 this year after the trade, and you have Penix and McCarthy at quarterback, and McKee, who's at least looked like a decent backup last year. Um, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to save the cap space, use it in other ways instead of rostering 3 to 4 quarterbacks.
I think
That all could be starting, or 3 quarterbacks that could be starting this year.
Well, that is part of it. I mean, Russell in Madden, he at least we'll see what they have him rated next year, but he's not rated poorly right now. He's rated more like a, fringe top 20 guy rather than a fringe starter that he appears to be in real life at this point. So that I do think he had not his contract. His contract didn't have value, but it, it wasn't as bad for an acquiring team as it was bad for me. He wasn't going to see the field for me because even if I do get one quarterback down, I'm just going to play the other, young guy, right?
Yep.
So where for me, I'm just looking at this like, okay, it's a third stringer taking up 70 million. For New England, they're saying this is a starting quarterback. Yeah, we got to overpay him, but we're getting picks, and that's going to help our rebuild, and he can be abridged in a not super hot quarterback class. So I definitely saw what they were doing. There's tons of teams in the ACFL that have cap money to blow, and you don't always have a great place to put it, right? Not a ton of amazing players are going to hit free agency, and so I definitely see what they were doing. I will say there were other teams interested in taking him on, but New England was probably the best fit in terms of he had more value to them than he did to some of these teams that literally just wanted him as a backup.
Yep.
So I thought that was made sense for us both there. You get down to trade number 8. We got the Tyreek Hill reunion. Mahomes, his wishes have been granted, and the Chiefs are sending a second, a fourth, 2 fifths, and tackle Jonah Williams to bring back Tyreek. He's got 2 years, about 60 million left on the deal. So that might seem pretty high, but compared to this latest ACFL receiver market, I'd say that's actually a little bit of a discount for a top 5 receiver.
Yeah, that's really not that bad. Um, Especially since speed plays such a huge piece in Madden that Hill still brings in spades. I thought it was funny that he brought him back. Now I'm just waiting for Chris Jones to come back to Kansas City.
I would,
Reunite all the guys that JFK sent out originally, but I mean, it makes sense. I feel like for both teams, Lions get the cap space. It became kind of clear with some of the guys they were shopping. We talked about Lane Johnson. Um, they may not be as competitive as they have in years past, unless they pull some other trades for younger guys. Jonah Williams is still a good fill-in on the line. Not great, obviously, nowhere near Lane Johnson territory, but he only costs like $4 million this year to be your starting tackle, and then you get 4 picks along with it. So I feel like this one was one that made sense for both teams. Kansas City just missing out on the playoffs, I think, back-to-back years now, and Lions recouping and getting the picks to rebuild.
yeah, I was more than poking my nose around this one. I do think we've seen a little bit of a correction from the previous 2 off seasons where you got the DeAndre Hopkins trade. He goes for a 15th overall, I believe, plus. Um, and I feel like Tyreek is basically in that same spot that Hopkins was at the time. And you can see that now, you're not getting that mid first anymore. So the teams that have kind of done the crazy all in hyper aggressive moves, maybe they're mostly out of ammo and now the market's kind of corrected back a little bit. In terms of the Lions, I wasn't necessarily convinced that they needed to blow it up. I know they didn't have the year that you were expecting them to have last year, or maybe you did expect them to have a down year because you thought you were going to kick their butt. But I didn't think they needed to blow it up. But I guess when you have two of the best D tackles on expiring deals, and um, I think that they thought last year was going to be like their strongest that they were going to be. So they're like, well, if we weren't good enough last year to get it done, let's let's reload the gun a little bit, and then we'll shoot again next year or the following year. So
Yeah, I did not think they were going to miss the playoffs, which made it only sweeter to be able to beat them and keep them out of the playoffs in the last week. But I was a little surprised when I found out they were going to start kind of blowing it up a little bit. But like you said, it did make sense. McNeil and Milton Williams both hitting free agency. Their tackles getting older. Some of that kind of stuff that retool and try to get younger and add the picks, and they've drafted pretty well here. So it, I guess, makes kind of sense in
yeah,
that in that
they still
regard.
have pieces where I feel like they can be competitive next year. You know, we've seen these DNs that are really highly rated just go nuclear. So with having Hutchinson, effectively in his prime, Goff is still one of the top QBs. So I think, and if they have let's see what they do with all these picks because now they've acquired, quite a stockpile.
Yeah, they
Um,
got 14 and counting right now.
and I think next year is really the year they go for it because with those expiring guys like Milton and who was the other one, Aleem McNeil, it sure seems like they're trying to comp farm those. So
Yeah, yeah. Then I
they're going to have a lot of cap next year.
have a lot of cap and should have a lot of picks over the next 2 years to regroup.
Okay,
We'll be in a
trade.
good spot.
I almost skipped a trade here. Trade number nine, Tyquan Thornton for a sixth round pick. Let's just go to the next one.
So you could
Giant.
have skipped that one.
The Giants. Yeah, I want to get to this Mike Evans one. The Giants got their white whale, Mike Evans, and a third round pick for pick 26, a sixth, and Quentin Lake. Lake's on an expiring deal, but he's a solid young starter. Looked really good in that playoff game, I thought, versus the Vikings. And the Bucks, you're sending out Evans. I believe he had 2 years left on his deal. On like we talked about with Tyreek, these guys are getting paid, but it's not as bad as having to do a brand new extension for a high-end receiver. So they are, a discount surplus value for the acquiring team. And then the Giants are sliding back about 40 picks from 26 to 65. So not a true first round, you know, price tag for Evans, but for the Buccaneers, you do get that first round pick. And let's see if the sheet's updated with all the picks they have now, because
They they are. Um,
yeah,
yeah, the Bucks have quite a bit too.
the Bucks are
I
up to
think.
three firsts now. So three firsts,
Yeah,
two
yeah.
seconds, and a future.
This is a great year to have that many picks in the first couple rounds
And
too.
they've got the Browns' future first, and as well as an extra second. So they're stocked for this year. They're stocked for next year. Um, yeah, I mean it's nice to take over a team with number one overall and a couple good assets that are the type of players that you would think you wouldn't have gotten number one overall because you still did have some good players, but Sim Malik Willis was not him, and the wheels kind of came off for them. So you can talk about kind of maybe the Giants' perspective on that. Quick
Yeah, I
thoughts.
know Bert's been trying to get Evans for like a year and a half. Um, and with the ownership change in Tampa Bay, I think it gave him a little bit of a window to do that. Um, and then obviously he had multiple firsts this year, getting one from me for Brock Purdy last year. So he had the capital to play with to finally bring in some of these impact guys. We talked about Ramsey before, and now Evans. Um, he's drafted defensive backs well. I actually talked about trying to get Lake from him earlier this offseason until he became part of the Evans trade. And um, yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for the Giants. Again, we talk about kind of giving your quarterback weapons. He's had Waddle, um, but really struggled to find another guy besides Waddle. He's had Slayton and guys like that, but this finally gives him like two bona fide good wide receivers in Evans and Waddle, and um, makes their offense a lot more dangerous than it was last year, in which he made the playoffs. So
Yeah, when you think about, I mean, I'm just kind of looking at this roster right now. They added Branch, they hit on that one. They re-signed McKinney, which the Giants didn't do in real life. He blew up on them, so now you're talking about a super good, safety pairing. And then do you remember what the Hendrickson deal was? I think it was at the deadline or close to it. I mean, he
it was
broke.
like a second and a fourth for Hendrickson on a year and a half, which
Yeah, so
when you're paying Hendrickson $6 million is great.
Yeah, Hendrickson was kind of the original ACFL. You get a 4-year deal on a guy that, I wasn't here for this contract, but it was just a massive steal in free agency. And I can't remember who that owner was. He's gone now, but he would always brag about how good this contract was. And he was right. This was a crazy deal. And Hendrickson well, I guess currently he's still playing on it. A $6.8 million expiring deal for 2025. Bert's trying to extend him. But you talk about adding Ramsey, adding Hendrickson, adding Mike Evans, and then you hit on some of those picks like I talked about with Branch, and then even Bucky Irving was just a beast last year. So yeah, I'd say I think the Giants are making a push in that tough division, that NFC East. So that'll be fun.
The Eagles got to watch out because I think Giants are building a much better contender this year than even last year. And last year they looked good as well. So
Okay, and then I guess we saved the best one for last so far. We got the number one pick. This is how many years in a row we've had number one get traded? For sure. Well, I guess last year
three,
it didn't happen. It didn't happen last year, but there was so much trading at the top that well, at least the Drake May trade felt like a number one overall pick type trade. I
yeah,
guess I'll
yeah.
just put it that way. But okay, so the Buccaneers are sending out number one, a late third in '87, and then a seventh. They're getting six back, a sixth back, which is basically irrelevant. But then, so they're getting six. They're getting a future first from Cleveland, a team that, as of now, I think that Ritter's the quarterback. Obviously, you'd think that this would be for a quarterback, but I guess we don't have that confirmed. But potentially a low-end starting QB, future first. I mean, that's kind of the dream, I think, right? Because the upside can be tremendous there for the
Yep.
Bucks. That Cleveland division is also very difficult with, um, Pittsburgh's been so good. You got the Ravens, really found their footing last year. Who's the fourth team there?
Cincinnati,
Yeah,
who's
and
kind of tearing down
Cincinnati,
right
the
now, but
back-to-back Super Bowl champs. How could I forget? So, yeah, they are scaling back a little bit, but so sorry, just to give this trade one more time. First, third, essentially for a first, future second, future fourth. So, not quite your stereotypical number one overall pick trade up, but still a strong deal with a lot of upside for the Bucks. And then for the Browns, they're thinking, hey, we don't have to pay the Bryce Young, you know, we don't have to pay the three first last year that the Jets gave up. It's kind of, I think in their eyes, they're viewing this as a discounted, cheaper move up. And obviously, I'm sure they have a player in mind that they're excited about.
yeah, I mean this is about as cheap of a move as you can get for the first overall pick. I, to be honest, I haven't scouted Ward a ton just because I have no first and I have no need for a quarterback. I'm assuming that's probably who they're moving up for, but I don't know for sure. Um, but if when you're in need of a quarterback, if you love a quarterback, uh, if you think he's worth the number one overall pick, this is the year to do it.
Well, for Cleveland, if you remember, they started off decent last year, but then Warchild came in and was kind of able to right the ship, so to speak. Send out Ward, send out Stafford, and get them more in position to make a move like this. They still have the ninth overall pick, so they've got number one and they've got number nine. I had two picks in the top 10 last year. I can tell you it's a lot of fun. So I'm sure they're going to have a really exciting offseason there.
Yeah, and then I mean, even on top of that, they still after this trade, they still have a second and three thirds, so they've got a ton of capital still
Well, that they
this year to work with.
actually gained capital this year, right? Because I mean, they gave up the future second, but they're getting a third back.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. That's true.
so I think it was
Yeah,
just a good example of the Buccaneers saying, "Hey, listen, we're not gonna try to fix this in 1 year. We're going long term." And the Browns are saying, "Okay, you want to go long term? That sounds good to us. We're gonna shoot our shot right now. Try to get back up to speed and get in the mix in this extremely difficult division."
it's I have to sit out the first round this year, but it'll be exciting. I feel like we'll have some more movement, especially as we get close to the draft. And
You don't
I know my
have to
first.
sit out the first round. You're choosing to if you're not trading up.
Yeah, I mean, right now I would have to trade up from 53. So like realistically, with a fifth and two sevenths this year. So realistically, it's not happening. Uh, we'll see, but uh, as of right now, I'll be sitting out the first round and watching and enjoying the fun and the drama of it all.
Well, that's something I did my first year. I had no first. I was paying the sins of the Jamal Adams trade. So it was still a good time, though. I was sitting back watching, thinking, boy, I would have loved to have had a pick to get that Malik Willis trade up. But anyways, that'll wrap up. We got day one of trades. There are more to come, and it's going to be a fun off season. So hopefully everybody enjoyed our thoughts here. Um, we kind of touched on it before, but just as we wrap up here, did you want to give the one winner and the one loser? I guess that might be the same trade, but one trade that stuck out to you as I really like that move.
I uh, I'm gonna give a team for the winner, and I think it's gonna be the Giants. Getting Ramsey and Evans,
Okay, I like that.
and kind of bringing in some high end talent. Um, the loser, I mean, I don't know if anybody like lost, but I I would go back to the one trade I guess that I said that I didn't solely agree on the value with, and that would be the Falcons with Mayfield. I don't know if I'd consider them a loser, but
Yeah,
that's probably about as close as I would get in this first day of trades.
I would kind of agree with that. I loved that deal to get Anthony Richardson. You save cap, you get picks, and I feel like in my mind both QBs are sort of in the same spot here, which is you don't for the next 2 years, you got your starter, but is Baker going to be a guy for 6 years? I think Atlanta obviously views him in that light, so that's why they made the move for their in their eyes. I think they're thinking of it as like we talked about with Cleveland, as this is sort of discounted for a franchise QB. So I think that's so we'll just kind of have to see how that shakes out. I did think, uh, yeah, and I'll agree with you. I mean, I did like to see the Giants make those moves. I thought the trade at one was very interesting. Um, I kind of think it signals obviously the Bucks weren't in love with any one player, so I'm sure that they got to be excited about getting a haul and still being able to uh, pick a potential premium player at six. So I thought that was a pretty savvy move as well. But we can stop there, and hopefully we get a lot more trades to come where maybe we can do this again.
That's good.
Alrighty.